uint 128 uint 256啊，对比这个有符号的整形，那就有对应的 int 8、int 16、int 32等等这些。
8, 16, etc.
其中 int 是
And among them,
256的别名
int
啊 uint 是 uint 256的别
is
名。
the alias of int 256, and uint is the alias of uint 256.
长短应该根据其数据的长短选择合适的类型。
We have to select the appropriate type of smart contract in accordance with the data length and shortcomings to save resources.
主要原因。不同类型的我们来看
The example of different length type,
一些事例。
and there are some
有
examples.
符号的整形和无符号的整形的时候，进行计算的时候，
When we are computing the symbolic or non-symbolic
要将
integer, we have to transform it into the same type.
时候，我们需要注意
During the transformation, we have to pay attention to the boundary. Otherwise, the
或者说数据
data will be disordered.
这里的代码我们分别定义了一些
And the code is defined some of the symbolic or non-symbolic integer.
这个 uint 8定义了一
The
个
uint 8 refers to a variable.
这个变量它没有给它声明的时候没有赋值，所以它默认值视为0。
Its default value is 0.
还有定长字节类
The
型，
fixed length byte type.
它也是值类型，
In this
可以用
type,
来存储二进制的数据。
it can be used to store the binary data. And similar to the integer, the solidity provides multiple types of the fixed length, range from byte 1 to byte 32. Byte 1 represents 1 byte and byte 2 represents 2 bytes.
这里我们也定义了一些变量。
And in this, we have some variables,
b 是
the A and B.
也是一个b 也是一个 byte 1类型的它这个使用 byte 是 byte 1的别名。
Byte is the alias of byte 1.
定长的字节类型在声明的时候通常都会
The type of the fixed length bytes are usually expressed in the
一个16进制
hexadecimal in the declaration.
这里我们的 a 它就是表示的是一个字节。 byte 类型可以和 uint 类型进行转换。
The byte can be converted to uint, and 1 byte is equal to the 8-bit integer. For example, the byte 10 can be converted with uint 80.
单字节的 byte 类型是这个
The single byte is the alias of byte 1.
这里的变量 b。 变量 c 的话，它就是 byte 2类型，就是
The variable c is the byte 2 type.
byte 4就是4个字节。
The byte 4 has 4 bytes.
还有地址类型。
The address type,
是用于保存一个
it is used to save the address of the blockchain.
特指的是以太坊。长度为20
The length is 20 bytes.
地址是
And the address can be user address or contract address.
或合约的地址，这里可以多说一句。在以太坊中
In the Ethereum,
分为了
the address are divided.
一般是指
The outbound account includes some
256位经过一些哈希的单向算法生成的地址字符串
some random address as the outbound address, and the contract account is in accordance with information of the users, and this
合约地址是没有私钥的外部账户的地址它是有私钥的。用户地址 和合约地址，它们在格式
the
是相同的
they share
并不涉及到虚拟
these
货币
two type the same.
我们可以把地址类型看作
So in this
世界
part,
类型的类型一样即可。
we can regard the address type as a fixed
类
length.
型address
There we define the address
我们并给这个 address 附了一个值，
and we give it a value
20
that is 20 bytes.
然后是引用类型，
And the quotation type
包括了以下
has include the following:
数组类型，有数组
the array,
struct 结构体类型，
the struct, which indicate the structure,
string 类型就是
the string,
还有 map
and
映射
mapping.
映射可以自定义 key 和 value。
The key and value can be customized.
我们先来看一下数组类型。
First, we move on to the array.
可以保存多个相同数据
It can save multiple data of the same type,
型的一个数据保存相同类型的数据，分为了定程
and it is divided into fixed array and dynamic array.
就是说数据
The first type refers to that the length of the array is determined when defined.
存在的期间
During the existence of the contract, its length is unchangeable.
定义数组时，如果未设置元素，
If the element is unset when the array is defined,
默认元素就是
the empty element will be filled with the default value.
动态数组类型，
And the second one is the dynamic one.
会随着程序的运行而动态
The length will change dynamically with the operation of the program.
操作
And we can use push or pop and other project to change the array length dynamically.
数组有一些操作，定常数组和动态数组，我们都可以使用
Both these two types of the array can use the length
数组的长度
to obtain the length of the array,
和动
and the fixed and the dynamic array can use the delete method to delete the specified element.
索引元素的值为
And at the same time, the value of the specified index element is the default value. And let's see an example.
这里我们定义了一个
There we define the index
它的
array.
是 uint
It's uint, a fixed length.
长度为3，
It has
然后我们定义了一个
and we have also defined
age 的一个变量
age variables.
写为3， 类型为
The length is 3,
这
uint.
个是在定义的时候就初始化了，初始化为10、11、12。然后我们可以通过一些操作，
And we can
比如
take some measures.
这个函数，我们可以
For example, as for this function,
然后在 update index 的这个函数里面
in the index function, update index function,
可以根据索引，根据数组的索引来更新数
we
组，
can use the index and then update the
或
value.
者我们可以获取整个数组获取整个数组，
Or we can get the whole array
数组的索引来获取索引对应的值，
or to get the value through the index.
还可以通过这个 length 这个方法来获取数组的长度，
And we can also to acquire its length through this function.
动态数组
As for the dynamic array,
在声明这个数组变量的时候是没有指定它的长度的。
in this part, we didn't define its length,
一个变量
and there is age
第一个有
variables,
类型的一个 age 变量，初始化为10、11、12，
and the initialization is 10, 11, 12,
为数组来添加数组，
and we can add host.
添加为这个数组添加元素，
We add some elements to this array
也可以使用 pop 这个
or
命
use
令
pop
来为
command
来删除某个
to
数组元素，
delete some elements in the array,
也可以用 delete 方法
or we can use delete
将索引的元素设置为0，来将所
to
有元素设置为0。
initialize the value to 0.
这个数组中
For example, in the array,
就是11这个值为0，我们就可以
if we want to change the 11 to 0, so we can use a uint 1 and delete this array. And so the final value will be 10, 0, 12.
获取这个数组。动态数组类型也可以通过
The dynamic array can also use length to get its length.
还有一些特殊的动态数组。
And there are some special types of dynamic array, for example, the byte. Before, we have introduced some fixed length bytes like byte 1 to byte 32.
是特殊的就是 byte 字节数组，还有
As for the string,
字符串呢与 byte
it is similar to byte, but
它没有 length 的这个操作符，也不
it does not have the length operator, and it does not support the use of the index axis. Both of these arrays can save the data, and it can be encoded into UTF-8. And this is the code.
这里我们定义了一个 byte 类型的变量 a，
And we have the variable a.
然后定义了一个 byte 类型的变量 b，
and the variable b. The initial value is hello, and the string variable c.
可以通过 push， 同样可以通过 push 这个命令
We can use the push
来添加一些元素，
to add some element,
也可以通过 pop 这个操作符来删除元素
or use pop to delete some element.
这个 byte 类型
And as for this type of byte, we can
可以通过所以来修改指定的
use the index to change some of the elements.
改为 o b 这个，它就会变成了 h e l o w string 类型是不支持
As the string array is not supportive to the length, nor is it supportive to use the element through index.
这样的操作就是错误的，这样的操作就是错误的。
And this is the wrong practice.
映射类型是一般包括了一个值和一个
The mapping type has include the key and the value,
视为 map
and the format is
然后
mapping.
等号指向了一个
The key type equals to the value type,
值类型
and this is the arrow.
可以使用任意的类型，键和值
The key and the value can use any type.
使用这个符号进行
You can use this symbol to separate it.
在同一个 map 里，它的这个键是不能够重复的。
Well, in the same map, the key cannot be repeated. And we have the variable user. The key is uint and the value is string.
比如我们这里可以设置用户名，
For example, we can set the user's name,
我们可以传入一个 uint 类型的 user ID，
and we can have the uint user ID.
添加这个 map 类型，
And then we can add the map
同样
array.
通过这个键，我们可以通过这个键来
And next, we can acquire the value through the key. For example, if the user ID is 1 and the length is Alex, then we can put the user ID 1 to get the name, the Alice.
还可以删除，删除也是一样的。
At the same time, we can also delete,
这个方法来删除
use delete
map 里面的元素。
to delete some of the elements in the map.
结构体类
As for the structural type, is a dataset composed of a series of data with the same type of different types of data. As for this part, the individuals can customize it. For example, if we want to have a user type, it has the uint ID, the string name, or the gender. As for the gender, we use the enumeration type. So we can form a structure. And in the use of Webbase to produce this, I'll give you an example of this code. As for the data, in the VTM of the SRAM, all the reference type must have a data position to show the data storage position. Which includes the memory storage and the calling data. The memory the variable decreted by the memory, it can only be used during the functional declaration and used within the function. And it can be modified during its running, and it will be destroyed after running. The storage type, in this type, the global variable can be accessed by all the functions in the contract, and it can be permanently stored on the blockchain. And the call data is similar to the memory, but it can only be modified during the runtime when the function declaration can be used. And it must be used for the parameters of the external function. The code data is only available above 050 before the version 050, and the data position can be emitted. And let's see the code. For example, we have the age uint array, and it has the default or the global variables, the storage type, and the function memory test, its parameter age is memory type. And during the process of the function, after it's this parameter will be destroyed. As for the code data text, the data can be read, but it cannot be tampered. After the function process, it will be destroyed automatically. And as this part, we have a code data age, but it cannot be tampered. It can only be read. As for the global variables, in addition to defining the global variables of the contract, there are some special built-in global variables in Solidity, which are used to save the blocks and some transaction informations. Time variable, second, minutes, hours, days, and weeks. The block variables, block. The transaction variables, MSG, and TX. The address variable address.
时间变量的话，
As for the time variable, it looks like
有秒、有分、
that it has seconds, minutes, hours, days, and weeks.
这里的话，它这里返回了
As for this
分、
picture,
天、
it has second, minute, hour, day, and
返回
week.
的这些都是以秒为单位，
And
比如说
the returned data
1
are
秒，
in
它这里返回
second.
的
For example, the
变量就是60，
1 minute
1个小时
is
就是
60,
3600，
and then 1 hour is
3600
3600,
然后一天就是3600，
and 1 day is the
一周就是
3600 multiple
这个
24.
再乘以7， 一天再乘以7啊。还有区块变量，
And
区
there
块
are
变
block
量
variables.
有这个 block 哈希，
It
block 哈希
includes a block
是
hash.
32
It's a
类型，
BAT32
它会
type.
获取区块的哈希值，它会获取区块的哈希值。
It can have
它是
the
用 block
hash value of the
gas
block.
limit
The
表示
block gas
当前
limit,
区块链的 gas limit
it refers
啊，一
to
般
the gas limit value of the current
开发
block.
者不需要去关心这个值，
Generally, the operators does not need to
可能对于一些
care about this value.
挖矿的矿工来讲，可能需要
As for some miners, they have to
还
care
有
about
block
this.
number，block number
The block number,
表示的是当前
which
的
refers
区块
to the
当前区块高度。
height of the current
还有
block.
这个 block time
The block timestamp,
times tab 这个表示当前区块的时间。
which refers to the timestamp
还有一
of
个
the
叫
current
no 的一个别名
block.
也可以用 block 点 no 来表示当前区块。
And it also has a name of the no block
这里需
dot
要注意
no.
的是，
We have to notice that we shouldn't rely on the block hash or block timestamp as the source of random numbers. These are not actually random numbers.
金融合约的这个里面，
In some financial contract, it has a risk of being attacked.
区块变量的一些示例啊，这里就是
Some examples of the block variables. This is to acquire the hash of the first block, the byte 32.
获取当前区块的
To get the gas limit value of this block,
上限，
its limit.
然后获取当前区块的高度 block
To get
number 啊，获取当前区块的时间说，也可以
the
用
number and its timestamp, or it can also be replaced as now.
除此之外，还有一些交易变量。
Besides, there are some transaction variables, for example, the MSG data.
表示调用当前合约的原
It
始，
represents that the bytes
MSG
cores of the original data of the current
这个
contract.
表示当前合
MSG,
约的原始数据的前四个
which refers to the first 2 bytes of the original data of the contract.
这两个用的都比较少，然后
These
这个
two are
MSG 也
rarely
用
used.
这个是
MSG
用的比较
dot
多
sender are frequently
是
used,
当前合约的
which stands
调用
for
者就是调用合约的这个调用者的一个地址，
the
然后
address of the
TX
from the current contract core.
origin 这个表示
TX dot
合
origin
约地址
means
的发起者
the
地址。
initial address of
比如
the
说 A 合
the
约
trader.
可以调用 B 合约，
For example, the trade A can call trade B. The contract A can call contract B.
一个用户 A 它可以
If we have
发起
user
调用
A,
去调用
it
合约
starts a
但合
contraction
约 A 里面
to
呢
B.
调用了合约 B 的交易，那么此时MSG 这个 sender 是表示
And
的是 A 的合约
the
地址，
MSG sender refers to the contract
表示的是
address of
当前
A,
用户
and the
调用
TX
合约
origin
的账户地址。
refers to the original address of user.
这里刚才已经说过了。
And we have talked about this before.
地址变量
The address variables in Ethereum and other public chains.
就是 address 这个
The
存在了
address
存在了以下的几个内置函数
in the following built-in functions to the search for the balance, transfers, etc. For example, the balance will respond with a uint, which is the coin of the current account. The address transfer, which send a specific amount of the specific to the specified address. The address sent is send a specified account to the specified address and return false when failed. Address this to get the current contract address. But in the blockchain, in this blockchain doesn't have the motivation, so it is not linked to the transaction of the coin. This is the address. This is to get the address of the current contract. The expressions in Solidity. The expressive and operational symbols that refers to the statement that can form a single value, object, or function. And the number of operations can be the amount, variable, functions, or other expressions. For example, the age is more than 10. It is an expression. Age is a variable, and 10 is an integer. And the value more than 10 is more than 10. And this whole is the operational symbol. And the expression can be returned to the Boolean value. It can be true or false, and it depends on the value stored in the age. If is 11, it's true. If it's 9, it's false. Of course, we often have some mathematical operations on the variables: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and etc. These are some mathematical usage, and we have the x and y, the variables, to take the mathematical approach. And in Solidity, the calculation of decimal is not supported. We also have some comparative operators. For example, the equal, not equal, the more than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. And these are some comparative operators. If we define x equals to 11, so x is definitely not equal to 10. So this full value is false. And this is, the second one is true. And the third one is true. And here are some logic operators. That means and or no.
真的时候，那么这个表达
And
才为真。只要有任意的一个表达式为
if any one of the expression is false, then both of the two expression is false.
表示的是就是当
The second one means that only when
只要有其中一个表达式，或者说前
only
两个
if
都有
the
表达
first
式，
one or
只
the
有有
second
一个
one
表达式为真，
is
这个就是
true,
为真的。
then the expression
这个
is
就是为真
true.
非就是取相反。
And the last one is the opposite, it means the opposite.
还有一些位的运算符，
Some
位的运算符
bit operators.
这里我们简单看一下吧。就是这个就是按位进行与操作，这里就是按位进行或者
This is the
这
operation
里就是按位
and
进行
or exclusive
异
or
或操作，这里就是取反，这里就是
to
左
take
移
the opposite, the left shift, the right shift.
这个代码就不说了。如果选手感兴趣的话，可以自
And
己
if you are
看一下
interested in this code, you can run this by yourself.
左值运算符，左值
The
是
left
指
value
位
operator,
与表达式
it
相
refers
同
to the
的变
variable
量，
located on the
是
left
与
side
操作
of the expression.
直接结合而形成
It
的。
can be formed
复
directly
值
with
或
the
者自取，
operator.
也可以是赋值或者位运算。
And it can also
x
be
加
assigned or the
1
bit
等于
operation.
x
For
等
example,
于 x 加1。
the x let's see this equation.
我们来看一下左值运算符的一个代码示例吧。
The example of the left value,
x、y、z 三个变量，
we have three variables x, y,
就
z.
等于
X
等于
plus plus
x 加1
equals
这个
to
右边这个表
x
达
and
式是
x
相等
plus 1.
y 乘等于3
Y multiple equals to 3.
这个是取模模运算。然后还有一些分支语句，
And there are
分支语
some
句
subsequent
是多条
sentences.
或者多
The
行语
branch,
句执行的结果。
it's a code block that determines the execution through the result of one or more
比如说会
statements.
直接看代码。这里比如说我们这个 text 的函数
For example, the text function, we have the parameter condition.
我们可以
It is the
判断
bool
这个
type.
类型是否为真。
So we can
如果
consider if it is
这个
true.
为真，那么
If it is true,
这个
then it will return
判断
to the condition
这
true.
个字符串。如果它为 false 为假，
If it
就
is
会返
false,
回
it will
这个
return to
condition
the
false。
condition
这是一个
false.
分支语句，这是一个分支语句。
This is a branch statement language.
当然还有这个多条分支的，比如说我们可以去判断 condition condition 如果else 语句可以结合
We can use the else and language and the if language to judge. There is condition, condition two, and we can judge the condition first if it is true. If it's true, then we return to condition true.
else if 在这个分支下面，如果它不为真，
If it is not true, then we will run the else if
是不是为真
to test the condition two.
condition 2是不是为真？如果 condition 2为真呢，
If
我们就
condition
证
two
明
is
2
true,
为真。
we will return to the condition two true. If both of them are false, we will return to all false.
循环语句，循环语句呢是可以根据条件
The loop statement can be repeatedly executed according to the condition, according to while, do while, or for.
这里是一个 where 的
This is the while loop sentence. when this condition is less than or equal to 10, then the following code will be running. If it's false, we will return to the sum.
它每执行这个 where 每执行一次它这个 condition 就会加一
When the while is running for once, the condition will plus 1 until it's false. We return to the sum.
do where 其实和之前那个 where 是类似的。
And do well is similar to well.
了一个运算，然后
It's do calculation at first, and then it do the judgment.
还有 for 循环。
As for full circular sentence, there are 3 conditions, and we separate them with a semicolon. The value of the condition is 1, and this is to judge whether it is less or equal to 10. And if it's true, it will run the following code. After we run this code, the variable condition will plus 1. If it's 1 in the first time, it will be 2 in the second time, until it does not meet the demands of this equation. Finally, we move on to the solidity function. The function is a well-organized code segment that can be used repeatedly, and it is used to achieve the single or related joint function. It can improve the modularity of the application and the repetitive utilization rate of the code. And this is the format, function. The name of the function. And this is the parameters of the function. It includes the type and the parameters. And there will be some modifiers. We will talk about it later. And they have a return. If there are many returns, we can use it in a bracket. The function can pass 0 or multiple parameters, and the format is the type of the parameter and the name of the parameter. As for the dynamic array types, for example, the tab or the string, we need to specify the location of the data. For example, if we define the test2, it has 2 parameters, the uint and the second is the string. It's a dynamic array, and we have to use the memory to modify the location of the data. And we will introduce public later. At the same time, the function can have 0 or multiple returns. And its form is similar to the parameters. The name and the type of the parameter. For example, the text3.
这个 text3 函数它有两个返回值，
It has two returns.
返回值是 uint
The first one is uint,
第二个函数是
and the second function is string.
它是 string 类型，它是一个动态数组，所以需要
It has the dynamic array, so we use the memory to modify it, to modify the location of the data.
这个参数名是可以不填的就比如 text2一样
For example,
内部函数调用
as for the core of the internal functions, that means the function in the contract can be called by other functions in the current contract.
比如说我们这里定义了一个 test 函数
For example, we have defined a test
这个 test 函数
function
就把参数加一，然后定义了一个
and to add the parameter,
test2
add one in the parameter.
test1 函数
And the test2 is use the test1. That's called the test1.
外部的函数调用，外部的函数调用呢，就是
To call the external contact function code.
调用合约外部的函数。一般来讲，我们会先引入
Generally speaking, we will
外部的合约，比如说
add some extra contract, for example, the import code,
合约代码，智能合约代码。
the code of the external smart contract.
这里就去调用了 text 的函数。
And we had called the test function.
这里传了一个这个 test 合约的这里传了一个 test 合约的。
And in this part, we have the address of the test contract.
来实例化这个合约来实例化这个合约，并且去调用这个
So we can
test 这个
call the test function
函数，
of the contract.
这样就达到了我们调用
Therefore,
合约的一个方法。
we use it to call for the external contract.
讲一下函数的限定符。
The
限定符可以限制函数的一个返回
limit of the function, we can limit the scope of the function. For example, the internal,
只能在当前合约
the qualifier. That means the function can only be accessed in the current contract and inherent in the current contract. The public means the function can be visited directly from internal and external. The private means
用来修饰函数的时候，表示该函数只能在当前合约
it means that the function can only be accessed in this current contract, and external means the function can be accessed externally, but it cannot be accessed from the internal part. Besides the qualifiers, there are some additional qualifiers,
我们可以结合实际情况来进行使用。
and we can use in accordance with the reality. For example, the view or pure.
view 呢修饰呢就表示该函数只能
The view means that the function can only read the global variables of the contract
对其他
and
对这个变量
cannot perform the other operations.
修改操作。pure 呢表示不能
As for pure, it means that it's unable to operate
操作和
contracts global variables, including reading.
就是说，当用 pure 修饰这个函数的时候，既不能读也不能取。它有点类似于这种对函数权限访问的一个味道。
It's kind of like
我们来看一个示例。
the limitation or permission of the function. And let's see an example.
当我们使用 view 这个修饰符
When we apply the view modifier to modify the public view function,
我们是不能去修改这个
we cannot change the x variable, and this will result in a false. And when we use pure modifier to modify this function, we cannot read the variable. So the pure is higher than the view in terms of the permission. And this is the modifier. Is used to easily control the logic of the function. For example, we execute a behavior, we have to modify its premise. As the running environment of the smart contract is transparent, so in order to improve or to secure the security of the code environment, we have to check and the smart contract is transparent. So we use the modifier to test the repetition of the code, and it will look even more concise. And we use the modifier keyword to declare. And we use the line to indicate the modified function. And let's see a code. We have defined the only owner. We only allow the owner to do the contract. And this means, and let's see the function first. We have a text function, and in it we use only owner modifier. And in only owner, the code is the MSG sender equals to the owner. And in the constructor of this contract, the owner is defined. For example, if the user A has deployed this contract, the address of user A is set at owner. That is to say, we can only call the test function in the user A's address. And this line stands for the executed function, and the premise is that the core of the contract is the owner. And there are some wrong treatments in the smart contract. Sometimes we may introduce some errors inadvertently. So we like to follow some rules in order to write a strong contract. The errors may occur in the development or in the operation. In the compilation, we'll test all the grammar's mistakes in the compilation. And as for the mistakes in running, it's very difficult to capture. The solidity has some syntax to check the mistake, like require, assert, and revert. In require, when the required statement is declared, the internal constraint must be met at first. We use the required to judge some of the parameters whether it meets the demand of the function. For example, we have a transfer function. There must be a number in the transfer function. So we can have to judge whether the number, whether the user has the enough account, for example, the 10 Bitcoin, then we can judge whether the user A have 10 Bitcoins to transfer to the user B. Only when this condition is satisfied can we process the risk code. The asset will throw out the abnormalities, then it will recover, but it will receive a bool type parameter for the judgment of the internal code of the program. In revert, will return the errors and will only receive one optional parameters which are used for passing errors information. And this is the require contract. And in it, we use require to judge the caller of the contract is owner. And this is the third contract. Which is to judge whether it's less than or equal to 255. And the revert when this is not meet the demand, we will see abnormal. And in it, it has a very important word that is factor, that is event. It can record the log during the execution of the contract. When the event is called, the parameter will be triggered to trigger it in the log in the transaction. And this log are associated with the address of the contract and record on the block. The event use event for definition. It can have multiple parameters. It can only write the type of the parameter and omit the name. The core event we can use emit. The emit event name and the parameter A, parameter B. To define the event, we can query the specified log according to the conditions through the event query function. And it is frequently used for the background development. And this example for event contract, we use event
关键字定义了一个 test log
to define the test log
事件，这个事件
event.
参数
It has two parameters, the uint and the string.
uint 和 string。然后我们在调用 test 函数的时候，我们可以使用 emit。
So when calling the test function, we use emit to
向该事件传递两个参数，
to transfer two parameters.
然后当这个用户调用 test 这个函数的时候，那么
the user is calling the test function,
捕获到这些事件，
we can find this event
进行一个跟踪或者
and then deal with this event.
好，今天训练营第3天的内容
So this is all for today. And
然后为了这个方便，就是昨天不是有国外的同学说他们不太熟悉这个
and yesterday the foreign experts said that they are not very familiar with the fiscal cost. Today I'll do example.
演示一下这个平台来告诉这些
do the demonstration for the experts and contestant how to use Waybase to write or call or deploy the smart contract.
我们以我们刚才讲的一个合约为例
we'll take the contract we mentioned before.
稍等，我找一下。我们以这个合约为例吧。
And we will take this as an example, the structure.
接下来我给大家演示一下。
Next, I'll do a demonstration of
搭建节点，从搭建节点开始吧，如何搭
how to construct a node of the blockchain and how to deploy the node
节点前置服务所提供的合约 IDE 里面去编写智能合约
and how to write a smart contract in the IDE and to deploy and call the smart contract.
首先我们来搭建一个区块链节点
And we will construct a node
开发部署工具来搭建一个，在本机搭建一个搭建3个节点
and we will construct 3 nodes and the interface is 30300 channel interface
默认搭建一个这个3个节点的区块链
and this is a blockchain with 3 nodes
然后搭建区块链以后我们运行一下这个
and after that we run all of the nodes
所有的节点都成功启动了
all of them start successfully
搭建来部署一下这个 Waybase
and we deploy the Waybase middleware
我们来配置一下节点的证书
we will do the configuration of the certificate
然后我们就可以启动节点前置服务了
then we can launch this
好，稍微等一下 节点前置服务的状态。稍微等一下。进来的话，它这个就是我们的 Webbase 节点前置服务的页
And
面。
this is the Webbase front, the page for Webbase front. And we can change the language, Chinese or English.
然后我们可以使用这个
And we use
合
the
约 IDE
contract IDE
进行合约编译。
to
这里
compile
写了一个
the contract.
简单的合约代码，就是我们刚才讲的。就是我们刚才这里讲的这个合约代码。
And this is the test code.
这里呢，我们定义了一个 test 合约。
We define a test contract, and we have an enumeration tab that is gender,
一个
male or female.
然后定义了一个结构体 user， 这个结构
And we have a structure user. It has 3 elements: uint ID, string name, and enumeration gender.
然后我们定义了一个 public 的一个变量。
We have the variable public.
它是一个全局变量。
It's a global variable user.
然后我们定义了一个函数。
And we have a function, create user.
这个函数有3个参数。
The function has 3 parameters: the user ID.
第二个参数是
The second is the string name, and the third is the bool,
第三类型是布尔类型，代表性别。
which refers to the gender.
我们默认的时候，我们默认这个，我们在给这个结构体，我们定义的这个结构体，默认会把我们的参数
In this structure, we will do the default that we will copy the parameter in this
默认的是男性，
construct, and the default for gender is male.
我们传递的第
And
三
later, we'll find out the third parameter
是否为
to
女性。
find out whether it's a female.
if 这个女性，如果她为女性，那么我们就
And we use the if
当中的
to test whether it's a female.
改为这个女性。然后我们还定义了一个函数，
And then we have a function to get the user gender.
public 的一个函数。
The public function has a string return.
它是一个动态的数组，它是一个动态的数组。
As it's a dynamic array,
memory 这个
we use the memory
这个数据的位置
to modify
我们这里有一个判
the
断，
location of the data.
如果这个 user 这个结构体就是我们定义的这个结构体，
If the
它的
user
性别是为男，那么我们就
is a male,
男就是
then we will return to the Chinese character
返回女。然后我们
male.
我们编写完这个合约之后，
After we
可以这个
finish this
complete
contract, we can click the compile.
编译就是合约编写。
If this is if it runs successfully,
是显示你合约编译成功，
it will
不会有任何报错。
look like the contract compiled successfully.
有问题有报错。
If there's something wrong, it will choose in the following place.
它下面会有这个提示。
It will have some tips
哪一行有错是什么原因？
to remind you which line has a mistake.
寻找原因就可以了。然后编译完合约之后，
After we do the compilation,
合约进行部署。
we can deploy the contract.
然后这里我们事先
and we create an account before. If we just finish the web-based front, we may not have an account. We can create an account and to have a name for it. So we use the test account to deploy. It says deploy succeeded. We can see that this is the address of the contract. After that, we can call contract. We click the call contract. And this is the address of the current contract. And this is the function we choose. We use the create user. And the user ID will give it a random username. For example, Alice. And it's true, female. And after it runs successfully, it is actually a transaction. You will return a receipt. The receipt has included the transaction hash, the root, the condition of the root, and the block number, and the block hash. And there are some other informations. And we will do the call of the gender with the get user. And we can see that we just created an Alex. It's female, and this is the Chinese character for female. As we have the global variable user, the default is that we will have a get user function. And we can see that the user is user ID and username Alice. And this is gender. True is 1. And let's try Bob. And he's a female, or he's a male, sorry. So it's false. And we can get the gender is and we can see that it's male in Chinese character. And the users the Bob. So I just do the demonstration of the build of the node, the web-based front, deployment, compilation, and the core contract.
看一下大家还有什么问题没有？软件清单上面没有说明的东西，比赛中是一定不会用到的啊。软件清单上面列出来的东西，比赛中是有可能会用到的。看一下大家各位选手或者专家还有什么问题。那个翻译老师，不好意思，刚才那个我网络不好断线了，然后他重新连接就没有切到中文。啊，可以可以。合约用的是什么加密货币操作的？因为我们的 Physical Because 它是联盟链，它底层并没有设计，跟以太坊一样的这种激励层，也就是说 Physical Because 它是没有激励层的，也就没有货币这种类型啊，也就没有货币。
So I just answer your question. So as the fiscal because is a consortium chain, it does not have a incentive or motivation. So there is no currency.
11月4号吧，11月4号。
Okay, but in this case, how can we pay for gas limit for gas price?
You mean how can we find the gas price?
Yes, but because in the Ethereum, this is the cost of the transaction fee, the gas limit related with the cryptocurrency. But in this case, how the user can pay for gas limit for transactions? It is not clear for me.
Okay.
Guest price 我们没有 guest price，我们只有 guest limit，就是我刚才已经介绍过了。
So the lecturer just said that we do not have the gas price, we only have the gas limit.
我刚才已经
Okay, but gas limit, what does it mean, gas limit, in the case of the fiscal because?
Okay.
好，我再解释一下吧。在 fiscal because 当中，它是没
So
有
in the fiscal because we do not have the currency as the incentive or motivation because it's a consortium chain. It's unlike the Ethereum.
所以说在 fiscal because 里面，
So in fiscal because in the core of the contract or the deployment, we do not consume the pay. We do not have to pay for it. So there's no price.
只是用来限
the gas limit is only used to limit the logic of the transaction to avoid some dead end.
Yeah, I understand, but okay, in the Ethereum platform, each operation has their own cost. We have more expensive operations, more cheap operations. How in the platform fiscal because what is the cost of these operations according to these 3 and a lot of zeros gas limit?
I'm sorry, I didn't get your question.
The question is for doing the transaction in the Ethereum platform, we pay gas from the gas limit for each operation. And if the operation is complicated, then we should pay a lot of points. And if the operation is not complicated, we pay small amount of points. I see that now at gas limit we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9 zeros points. How these points will spend during the execution of transaction?
Okay. So this is only the default number for it, and if after the transaction there's something left, it will be refunded. And if the transaction is failed, the gas will not be refunded.
In smart contracts, when you are doing smart contract in the if EVM, virtual machine, you should spend some points for each operation. This is the limit because we couldn't do a lot. Just a second. Endlessly operations. This limit, we need this limit to stop transactions which has, for example, endlessly loops.
Yes.
But each operation in smart contract has their own points. How many points from gas limit I will spend if, for example, I will have only arithmetical operations, or if I will have loops in my contracts, or if I will have maybe some additional operations. I need to understand what is the cost of the points from this gas limit for each operation in my smart contract.
Okay.
在这个 fiscal because 里面不需要用户去考虑交易费的问题，也就是说你不需要去，没有代币模型，不需要去考虑交易费的问题。
So in fiscal because you don't have to worry about the transaction fee.
It's not about the transaction fee. I mean that if you have wrong logical, your transaction can
如果说你要返回多维数组的话，你可以添加这个ABI encode V2来启用这个ABI V2的这个功能，这样子的话，你就可以返回这个多维数组。一般在0.7.0之前就使用这个方法。
I want to know how the gas limit used, how these points from gas limit will be used in my transaction.
You mean the 300 million, right?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, thank you for your question.
这个 gas limit 主要是用来限制你写的代码有一些死循环，因为比如说你代码里写了一个无限循环的话，你会导致运行的每一个节点都会不断的去消耗你的 CPU 内存这些资源啊，所以说会为了防止这个现象，所以会有一个 gas limit 这个字段，这个 gas limit 之后消耗完了之后，那么你的该笔交易还没有完成，那么你的该笔交易就失败了啊，是这个作用，是这个作用。但是选手不需要去考虑 gas price 啊，没有代币模型，没有交易费。
Well, the gas limit is only used for the restrictions to the endless loop, like you just mentioned before. It will endlessly use your CPU, but when the 300 billion is used up and you are still doing your transaction, then the transaction is failed. But in the competition, the contestant needn't worry about this because we don't have the coin models for it. So we don't have to worry about the transaction fee.
Okay, I don't worry about transaction fee. I worry about dead loops and so and other logical, because sometimes in the Ethereum without dead loops you can not complete the transaction, and I'm worried about is it enough for the smart contracts. Okay, I understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
翻译老师，那国外那边选手还有问题吗？行，那我回答一下他昨天的那个问题吧。你这边翻译一下，就是说我们本赛项呢分为了3个模块啊，就是我第一天讲的时候也讲了，分为3个模块。其实只有第一个模块呢是区块链运维部分，是需要选手去操作 Fasco BRICS 这个平台的啊。第2个模块是智能合约，和第3个模块应用开发都跟 Fasco 这个平台没有多大关系啊。所以说并且 Fasco BRICS 这个平台它有它的一些工具，比如说建链工具啊，它都会有 help 命令。可以供选手参考啊，它会输出所有可用的命令。其实本质上它就是一个官方文档，它就是一个官方文档。这不管对于国外的选手而言，或者国内的选手而言啊，这都是公平的，这都是公平的。第2点，本赛项呢是国际上呢正规且公平的一个比赛啊，所以说我们不能以这种想当然的这种要求去查阅这种外网的资料等等这种要求，也希望各位选手能够理解。包括像我们的代码错误啊，比如说刚才我已经演示了我们的代码错误，合约编译的代码错误，它会有编译器会有这个提示，会告诉你哪一行哪里错了啊，选手需要根据这个提示错误去解决问题啊，这也同时也是考验了选手解决问题能力的一个方式啊。第3，我们呢就是建议选手，就是国外的选手因为确实这个 Fasco BRICS 它是我们国内的一个联盟链平台，所以我们建议选手可以多去看一下，在比赛之前多去看一下这个官方的一些英文文档啊， 通过这个英文文档去练习，多去练习，多去了解这个 Bicycle Because 的平台啊，比如说它跟我们的常见的公有链的平台啊是不一样的，它是没有激励层，没有代币模型啊，也不需要手续费的啊。然后我们的训练营的最终目的呢，其实也就是为了这些参赛选手提供学习和了解比赛的一种途径，所以说这也是我们开设这个训练营的目的啊。所以说希望国外的选手能够理解啊，就是我们这个实际比赛的时候是不允许使用这个外网去查阅资料的啊。
Okay, so as for your question yesterday, and as for this competition, we have three models. We have three modules. The first module needs the competitors to use the physical because. As for the second and the third one, for the smart contract and application development, we do not use the physical because. And in the physical because, we have the help language to give some tips to all the contestants. So if there's something wrong, they can use the help. There are some tips. So it serves as the function of the official documentation. And so in order to promote the fairness this competition, every contestant cannot look for the informations or other documents. And just like I just do the demonstration of the arrow, there are some tips for you. And it also tests the ability of the contestant. And my suggestion is that as it is a consortium chain platform in China, so we hope that the foreign contestants can use and practice more and read some English versions about it before we take the competition. And because it is different from other consortium chain, it has no coins, no transaction fees, no incentive or motivations. And the purpose of this competition is for contestants to learn more and to participate in it. So we sincerely hope that you can understand us. And we are aimed at promote the fairness of the competition. Thank you.
Please, can you repeat about the help? Contestants can use some help during or not?
Okay, so in the
at
physical
the first part, yes, at the first part of your speech, you tell something about help.
Yeah. So if the contestant makes something wrong in the physical because, they will have a bracket or a box. It says that there's a help and you can click it. There will be some tips for you to do the correction.
Can we see this help before the competitions will start? Can we know what we will have during the competition?
我可以给你看一下哈，我演示一下吧。
Okay, I can show you an example.
比如说我们这个监联工具哈，我们会有这个其实很多命令，不管是这个 Bicycle Because 也好，或者是其他的一些公有链的这种平台，或者是联盟链的平台也好，都会有这种参考命令哈。
And this is the help demand. And it serves as official documentation. So it's written in English for both contestants in China and abroad. It's fair.
Okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your question. And it has described the meaning of this parameter. So it is very clear.
Yeah, I see. It's cool. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
各位专家和选手还有什么问题吗？
So do we have any other questions?
OK，如果没有其他问题的话，我们今天第三天的
So this is the end of today's training.
明天，我们的日程安排，明天是没有这个训练营。
And tomorrow we will take a rest and we will start the day after tomorrow.
这个了解一下啊，明天不要跑空了。
So tomorrow we don't have the training.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank
See
you for your
See
cooperation.
you on Monday.
Okay, see you.
Bye.
好，拜。
Bye.